Hey there, and welcome to BingeBot. We recap all the latest and greatest TV shows to help keep you in the loop. Today we're checking out Landman Season 1, a bold drama set in the heart of West Texas, where the booming oil business brings out fierce competition in a mad dash for cash. As always, if you guys want to support our channel, you can do so via YouTube memberships, Patreon, or Buy Me a Coffee. But for now, let's get started with our recap of Landman Season 1, starting with Episode 1, Landman. In the dusty deserts of western Texas, Tommy Norris, a petroleum landman, sits tied to a chair in an old barn with a bag over his head. Sent to negotiate a surface lease for his oil company, MTEX, on land used by the cartel, Tommy's offer is simple: don't mess with our oil, and we won't mess with your drugs. Deciding to give him the benefit of the doubt, the leader of the cartel branch, Jimenez, signs the deal and lets Tommy go. A mere 6 months later, a private jet stolen by the cartel lands on a restricted access road built by MTEX, loaded with stacks of cocaine worth $30 million. While unloading the cocaine into an unmarked van, an oil tanker owned by a company called TTP, MTEX's biggest rival, barrels down the private road at full speed and crashes directly into the cartel's vehicles. Arriving at the scene, Tommy insists the Federal Aviation Administration was informed of the stolen plane and that TTP shouldn't have been on an MTEX road in the first place. But despite this, he warns his boss and owner of MTEX, Monty Miller, that they'll be hit hard in court and desperately need a solid lawyer. In addition to the stresses of his workload, Tommy receives a call from his volatile ex-wife Angela, who cusses him out for forgetting about their teenage daughter, Ainsley. Agreeing to host Ainsley in Odessa for spring break, Tommy also updates Angela on their son, Cooper, a college dropout who decided to work for his father in the oil field instead of finishing his petroleum engineering degree. According to Luis Medina, head of an oil crew and one of Tommy's trusted friends, having Cooper on the field is a waste of a degree. Regardless, Luis still assures Tommy that, along with his two nephews, Elvio and Armando Medina, they'll make sure that Cooper learns all of the practical lessons that he needs to. Unfortunately, Cooper's next lesson rolls in hard the following day without warning. While working on one of the rigs, a stiff valve gets stuck, and Cooper's sent to retrieve the correctly sized wrench from the truck. Through Luis's consistent strike of the hammer and wrench to unstick the valve, one singular spark suddenly ignites, leading to catastrophic consequences as the entire rig erupts in a violent explosion. Save for Cooper, who's blasted off his feet from the force of the explosion, the fire turns the rest of his crew to ash within seconds. Episode 2, Dreamers and Losers. As soon as the word of the explosion reaches Tommy, he rushes to the scene. Seeing that Cooper is still alive with no injuries aside from a ruptured eardrum, Tommy suits up and rushes to shut the valve off, racing the clock as the huge fire blazes around him. While stabilizing the rig, Tommy accidentally crushes his finger, forcing him to take off to the hospital. Rather than seeking specialist care though, he takes matters into his own hands, pulling out his switchblade and slicing off the ruined tip of his pinky so they can stitch him up and just be done with it. With no rest for the wicked, Tommy has to break the news to the Medina families before meeting with a liability attorney, Rebecca Falcone, to save MTEX from 3 devastating 9-figure lawsuits from the heartbroken widows. Sharp as a razor and cold as ice, Rebecca surveys the explosion site with Tommy. Despite it being a genuine accident, both recognize that there were still multiple safety violations on that one rig alone. With a calculated approach and per her specialty, Rebecca immediately starts fishing for someone to pin the blame on, and as the MTEX landman, Tommy is her prime suspect. Returning to pick up Cooper from the hospital, Tommy discovers that the reason his son dropped out of school is because he dreams of running his own oil company one day.
If I'm gonna run an oil company one day, I need to know how every aspect of it works.
So run an oil company, that's your plan now.
That's the dream.
Wishing to learn and know every aspect that goes into that, Cooper asks to be put on another crew. Aware of his smeared reputation, Cooper stands his ground in pursuit of his dreams, earning him Tommy's respect. Episode 3, Hell Has a Front Yard. To Tommy's dismay and Ainsley's delight, the hot-headed Angela arrives in Odessa. While she's supposedly there to emotionally support her children, Angela ends up going straight to the country club where she and Ainsley drink themselves into a stupor by the pool on Monty's dime. In a much less luxurious setting, Cooper faces off with Manuel and Antonio, cousins of the late Medina crew. With previous MMA training, the attempted assault backfires as Cooper grapples Manuel into a chokehold, putting him to sleep, and springs up to knock the gun from Antonio's hands. While Cooper attempts to explain that the explosion was merely an accident and in no way his fault, his words fall on deaf ears. That is until the boss of the man camp, Theo, meets with him, showing empathy and reassuring Cooper that such accidents and fatalities are common occurrences where they work. Extending the compassion, Theo offers Cooper a place on his crew, which unfortunately also includes Manuel and Antonio. Unable to shake his guilt, Cooper visits the Medina's wake with a bouquet of flowers and his deepest sympathies, where he forms a surprising connection with Elvio's widow, young and grieving mother, Ariana. Meanwhile, in an attempt to get Rebecca onto his side, Tommy takes her to the wind farm MTEX uses to power their oil wells. Trying to explain that the wind turbines are just as damaging to the environment, Tommy lays down the law on supply and demand, and how they've built a world critically reliant on oil and gas. Left to ponder this alone, Rebecca freezes at the sight of a rattlesnake. Terrified, she calls for Tommy, who calmly walks up and slices the snake's head off with a shovel. When Rebecca protests that he didn't need to kill the snake, Tommy seizes the opportunity, turning the situation against Rebecca by remarking that the only reason the snake had to die was because of her meddling where she doesn't belong.
You didn't have to kill it.
Well, I didn't have to kill it till you stood there and dared the goddamn thing to bite you. It left him one option.
After picking up the drunken girls from the country club, Tommy is surprised to hear Ainsley say that she wants to stay in Odessa with him rather than with Angela. Later in bed, Angela tries to seduce Tommy, only for him to break the news to her that Ainsley chose him. While this kills the heat of the moment, it inadvertently rekindles something much softer between them instead, as Angela realizes that Tommy genuinely cares about their family. Episode 4. The Sting of Second Chances. During the deposition for the TTP lawsuit, Rebecca proves her worth as a lawyer and savagely dismantles the entire case against MTEX in under 5 minutes. Although it's revealed that Tommy had actually given verbal permission to TTP to use their private road during a bypass closure, that permission was restricted, and the courtesy hadn't been extended for continued use beyond that.
You had restricted permission, which had expired. You made no request to extend it. We could land it in the middle of the road whenever we want. It's our f***ing road. Forcing TTP into surrender, Rebecca and Tommy celebrate with a drink at the Patch Cafe. There, they run into Angela and Ainsley and reluctantly agree to join them at a table for food. Going as awkwardly as expected, Angela's story about how her and Tommy's relationship fell apart, in part due to the last big market crash, strikes a nerve, leaving Tommy visibly upset and causing him to leave, forcing Rebecca to give the girls an equally awkward ride home. Later that evening, having developed more feelings for Tommy and refusing to have Rebecca as competition, Angela discusses her desire to be Tommy's wife again, and the deal is sealed with a night of heated lovemaking. Unbeknownst to Tommy, though, another horrific accident occurs at one of the rigs, as Antonio's hand is caught and mangled while feeding a pipe. Unconscious by the time they lower him safely to the ground, Antonio is rushed to the hospital, and Cooper steps up to finish feeding the pipes through and complete the construction with no more issues. Checking on the site the next morning, Tommy is proud of not just the new rig producing oil again, but of his son for doing such a fantastic job on an understaffed crew. After Tommy invites him for dinner, Cooper receives a phone call from Ariana, who says she needs to see him. Having been threatened by Manuel to stay away from her, Cooper gulps, considers his options, and ultimately agrees to swing by her house. Episode 5. Where is home? Helping Ariana with her bills turns into yard work for Cooper, who willingly weeds, declutters, and mows the lawn to ease her of another burden. As anticipated, Manuel pulls up to see Cooper in the front yard with a mower and furiously pulls a gun on him for the second time. Furious that Manuel insists on interfering with her life, Ariana erupts in a fiery outburst, unleashing her full rage upon him before abruptly ending her tirade with an unapologetic kiss to Cooper. Over on a field with 17 old wells Tommy wishes to work over, tensions continue to soar as the cartel pulls up, and Jimenez attempts to shake Tommy down for the money that they lost in the plane and truck crash. Fearless in the face of their threats to hinder MTEX's operations, Tommy convincingly spouts a bunch of lies about how a satellite has been placed over the field, ensuring their every move is being watched. Undaunted, Jimenez leaves after promising that Tommy's about to learn exactly what the cartel business is about. Returning home in time for the family dinner that Angela had planned, Tommy expresses his displeasure that she redecorated their rental house with the credit card of her current husband, Victor. With the arrival of Cooper, they sit for dinner that swiftly derails when Tommy answers the questions about his day with brutal honesty, even mentioning his confrontation with the cartel, much to Angela's shock. That night, back in his trailer, Cooper is ambushed by Manuel, Antonio, and 2 others. Behind closed doors, they beat him within an inch of his life and leave him for dead in a growing pool of his own blood. Oblivious to the fate of their son, Tommy and Angela plan a road trip to the city of Fort Worth for individual reasons, but as is the nature of Tommy's work, they have to detour to one of the fields where a stack of pipes has been delivered wrong. Standing atop the unstable bundle of mixed pipes, site manager Rick fumes about the mess, and with a sharp stomp of his foot, the entire stack gives way beneath him. In an instant, he slides with them, and his entire body is crushed horrifically beneath the weight, all while the utterly powerless Tommy watches, beginning to feel as if his line of work is nothing but one catastrophe after another. Episode 6. Beware the Second Beating. Despite the nightmare that they've just endured, Tommy and Angela still push forward and head to Fort Worth, where Tommy meets Monty inside of his luxurious mansion, while Angela goes to settle things with Victor, only to leave divorced, with nothing to her name except for a Bentley. As Tommy and Monty discuss the cartel, Monty receives a call meant for Tommy, who left his phone in the truck and missed every attempt from Sheriff Walt to contact him with the news about Cooper. Alive but in critical condition, Cooper suffers multiple broken ribs, swelling to the brain, and undergoes surgery for a collapsed lung. Gathering at the hospital, Tommy recognizes a regretful Ariana by Cooper's bed.
Fighting through the pain, Cooper attempts to defend the strange relationship blossoming between him and Ariana, knowing very well that it seems suspicious that he was right there in the accident that killed her husband, and now he's becoming involved with her. Even though to an outsider it may look like Cooper and Ariana conspired to kill Elvio and then run off together with the compensation money MTEX will pay her, Tommy and Angela know that their deeply compassionate and kind son Cooper would never do such a thing, which is why the only thing they care about is getting revenge on whoever got him in the hospital bed. With one of his men watching the cameras at the man camp, Tommy finds out the second Manuel and Antonio return to their trailer and orders the feed to be cut. Storming from the hospital, he tells Sheriff Walt to give him a 10-minute head start before the cops arrive, to which Walt obliges. Bursting into Manuel's trailer with a small, armed crew at his back, Tommy lays into Manuel with a wrench. As Theo and his men beat the names of their accomplices out of Antonio in the other room, Tommy batters Manuel bloody, but leaves him alive, for his true revenge is to take his life from him through a hefty prison sentence. On the way home, Tommy sadly reflects that Cooper simply isn't mean or cunning enough for this place, and if he doesn't find a way to get him out, someone is going to kill him. Episode 7, All Roads Lead to a Hole. Once Cooper's given the all clear, Tommy's attempt to retrieve him from the hospital proves fruitless as Ariana settles him into her car instead, wanting to take him to her home. Assuming full responsibility for the target on Cooper's back, Ariana takes incredibly good care of him to ensure his recovery. Meanwhile, across the state, Monty attends a business meeting with a representative from Diamond, a fellow oil company hoping for a $300 million loan from MTEX. Despite Tommy's warnings that the area is a highly active smuggling route, Monty rolls the dice and presents the deal for MTEX to receive 100% of Diamond's profits until the loan is paid back in full. And speaking of the cartel, Tommy isn't too surprised to see them later that day. On the field they were warned away from, Jimenez sends another crew in his place. As a gun is pulled on Tommy, he remains steady as the new workover crew at his back each pull a pistol of their own, ready and willing to shoot if necessary. Realizing that they're at a current disadvantage, the cartel temporarily take their leave and approach the situation from a fresh angle for later that night. As Tommy retrieves Ainsley from her first patch party and disrupts an intimate moment with her new boyfriend Ryder, his every move is being monitored from deep within the desert's shadows. In Ariana's bed the next morning, what starts as innocently sleeping next to each other for comfort's sake escalates quickly into a passionate kiss. Interrupted by the doorbell, Ariana goes to see who it is, only to find Rebecca and her colleague Nathan. As compensation for the loss of their partners, each of the Medina widows were offered to sign a settlement agreement for $250,000. However, Ariana was the only one who questioned the clause, stating that the widows wouldn't be able to sue MTEX afterward. Now, Rebecca and Nathan are there to get her signature one way or another. What neither of them expected, though, is for Cooper to come out from Ariana's room the moment they mentioned paperwork, or that she would trust him enough to read it over for her. Upon realizing who Cooper is and the sudden discovery that he's in a relationship with Elvio's widow, Rebecca's face lights up with a broad smile as she knows exactly how it looks and realizes that she'll be able to leverage the situation in her case to mitigate MTEX's liability for the explosion. Episode 8, Clumsy, This Life. Outside of the house, Rebecca grills Cooper about the accident before pressing on his relationship with Ariana. Even without her stating the obvious facts, Cooper understands how bad it looks and just how serious it could get for both him and Ariana if it came down to just his words against an increasingly solid case against them. As Rebecca spits out her plan to crucify him in a bid to destroy Ariana should she refuse to sign the agreement, underestimating the strength of Cooper's feelings proves to be a fatal mistake, as instead of bowing to Rebecca's threats, Cooper bites back with his own, announcing that they'll now be seeking up to $1 million in settlement deals for each of the families.
What do you think?
$1 million. Why are you carrying the load for all this? Where's your insurance company? What the don't you want them to see?
Reluctantly, Nathan calls Monty about the latest development, and naturally, Monty is furious that one of his own employees would betray him in such a way. After snapping at Rebecca for getting outplayed by a worm from a workover crew, Monty agrees to just get it done and over with, but before he can fire Cooper, the young fearless man simply quits on the spot. Unfortunately, this appears to be the final straw for Monty's stress levels, as it ends up triggering his 5th heart attack to date. From a hospital bed, Monty delivers the news to Tommy, who's already on his way to meet with Colonel Ivy from the Texas National Guard, a productive countermeasure that Monty negotiated with the governor to scare off the cartel for good. Aware that MTEX are in need of Army presence to bolster their defenses, Colonel Ivy agrees to set up regular training drills north of the oil fields. However, due to critical miscommunication, the first attack helicopter they send out for a drill mistakes a cartel van for target practice. As the smugglers unload their supply from a stack of spare car tires, the attack helicopter sweeps ahead and hits one of the vans, blowing their entire operation into a ball of flames. Episode 9, Wolf Camp. In a panic, Colonel Ivy calls Tommy to demand an explanation for why there were people on the field when he said there wouldn't be. Swiftly, Tommy points out that he only promised there was no oil production on the north side, not that it would be free of people. All attempts to dissolve their arrangement fall short as Tommy reminds Ivy the damage has already been done, which has locked the National Guard in whether they like it or not. Used to this by now, Tommy calls Jimenez to clean up the mess as usual, urging that they get back on the same page so their businesses can both start booming again. But sick of this cycle, Jimenez lets Tommy know that he has eyes everywhere and is watching carefully for Monty's downfall. Given that Tommy is visiting Monty in a Fort Worth hospital, this particular threat shakes him up. Having barely gathered himself, Tommy is left reeling once more when Monty promotes him to the position of Vice President of Operations within MTEX, and Rebecca the new Vice President of Negotiations, despite her lack of experience in the oil industry.
I'm making you Vice President of Operations. What are your thoughts on Rebecca? I'm offering her Vice President of Exploration. She's the shrewdest negotiator I've ever seen, and she's an absolute killer.
Thinking about the future, Cooper outlines his plans with Ariana to cement his reputation and secure enough cash to start drilling in Wolf Camp, the most oil-rich site in the world and an extreme challenge to obtain. To start, he visits a farmer sitting on untapped minerals and explains that if they can frack it, they can make money together that would set up his grandchildren for life. Remaining humble, Cooper promises the farmer 25% of the profits, firm in his goal to change the industry forever. Episode 10, The Crumbs of Hope. Having received word that Monty's health took a deadly turn, Tommy meets with his wife, Cammy, and a lawyer to settle Monty's affairs in preparation for the worst. Effective immediately, Tommy is promoted to the president of MTEX, the family estate, and executor of the family trust. As Monty awaits an emergency heart transplant, Tommy floats the idea of refusing the latest farm-out deal that they received, a high-risk $167 million lease agreement involving extensive fracking in an uncertain area. Instead, Tommy believes that they should sell off as many of their existing assets as they can to stabilize the company's finances. But Cammy is Monty's wife for a reason and demands that they roll the dice one final time and close the deal. Informing Rebecca about their sudden promotions, Tommy meets her on the field to explain what a farm-out deal is and how to best negotiate one. Deeply against fracking due to its environmental impact, Rebecca initially resists until she's harshly reminded that there's no other choice and she can't do anything about it. While driving later alone, Tommy is captured by the cartel once again and forced in the back of Jimenez's truck. To show Tommy that they're serious this time, they make him watch MTEX's newly built rigs erupt in massive explosions, igniting a giant blaze. To further terrify him, they bind him to a chair with a bag over his head, coming full circle to where it all began. This time, however, Tommy suffers Jimenez's cruelty. Hours pass as he endures blow after blow between fists and weapons alike. Already broken and bleeding with a nail hammered into his thigh, Tommy is doused in gasoline. Just as he begins to accept that, just like his rigs, he's also going down in flames, a flurry of gunshots shockingly rip through the basement, shooting down Tommy's captors left and right, including Jimenez. With surprising care, Tommy's bonds and the bag on his head are removed, and the savior reveals himself to be the elusive cartel boss himself, Galino. Amused that Tommy is still throwing threats at him even though he's bloody and slumped weakly in his chair, Galino assures him that there's no need for these threats as he's safe now. Knowing that Tommy will be wary of this though, Galino elaborates that his end goal is not just to coexist, but for the cartel to get a footing in the oil industry with MTEX as a business partner, not an enemy.
You and I have the same enemies. The world's a better place if we have friends.
But we ain't ever gonna be friends.
Once he's freed, Tommy refuses hospital treatment once again and returns home to the news that Monty has passed away while waiting for his heart transplant. Thoroughly shaken, he smokes a cigarette as the sun rises and watches a coyote sniff at a dead carcass of another just outside the perimeter of his home. Quietly, Tommy tells the coyote to run or be killed, understanding that this warning applies to himself as well, as it's the only way for him to survive in the cruel, vast nature of his world, the oil business. And that wraps up Landman Season 1. Now that Tommy is back in cahoots with the cartel and Cooper is looking to strike out on his own, Season 2 is sure to be interesting, and of course, we'll have that recap ready for you as soon as the new season releases. Thanks again for watching this recap and for sticking around till the end, guys. If you like this video, consider sharing it with a friend, or maybe just drop us a like. And if you want to see more like it, feel free to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a new one. We'll be back soon with another recap, but until then, BingeBot is logging off.